The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to the Heart of the Matter. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. How healthy are our communities? On today's program, we explore how factors other than nutrition impact the quality of our lives. Mitzi Baker from Rochester Olmsted Planning Department and Nancy Miller from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency explain how sidewalks, traffic patterns, and water quality play very important roles. Today we're talking about how environmental factors around us impact the health of communities, and I'm sure there are many, but Mitzi, can you start us out by giving us an example of some of the more important environmental factors that impact the health of a community?
Certainly. Among those important things would be how people get around the community. So do they have to depend on cars? Can they use their bicycles? Can they walk? Can they get to public transit safely and use transit as an option? And also where different kinds of uses are located. So where are the neighborhoods relative to the schools, workplaces, shops, coffee places, whatnot. So it's really, how is that built environment designed, and how does that impact people's abilities to move about freely and actually get physical activity in their day as well?
Okay.
Yeah, as far as environmental impacts, like clean air and clean water seem to be the two that come to the top of my mind.
The basics, aren't
I mean,
they?
those are the things. If you can drink the water, if you can recreate in the water, if we can swim, if we can fish, do those kinds of things, and if the air is safe to breathe, and we feel good about going about our business with clean air in a safe and healthy environment. So I guess those would be the two things that come to mind for me, and working on ways to make sure that we have that, and if we don't have it, that we get back to that.
And how do we measure those pieces? And let's start with clean air and clean water. What are the parameters that you guys take a look at and say, nope, we're doing really good here, or we need to do a little work over here? What are those measures?
Sure. In general, we have some air monitoring system. It's actually a statewide system, and it measures ambient air. And ambient air is just the everyday what's happening in the air column. I mean, is it, is there a certain thing of particulates? As an example, this past summer there were some wildfires up in northern Minnesota and Canada, and some of those particulates, which are very tiny particles that kind of float around in the air and can cause some respiratory problems, we're actually following the air column and coming down into southeastern Minnesota and actually covering Minnesota and Wisconsin, and it was very clear by the monitors that we were having these what we call air alert days, and what that just means is we hit a certain milestone number, and is 0 to 50 it means the air is good. 50 to 100 means might be something happening. 100 to 150 could be unhealthy for some groups. So we have this whole system of air monitoring, and if something trips that system, then we send out an air alert. We take it to all the local media. Citizens can actually sign up to get a message when one of those milestones is hit, and so that they kind of know what's happening in the air. So for the general public, what's happening, that's the system we use. It's again that statewide air quality index system.
In general, how is air quality in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa? Are we in pretty good shape?
Yeah, actually our air is really pretty good. I mean, we don't have the issues, as you might imagine, of the really densely populated metropolitan areas like Detroit or in LA. I mean, we don't have the haze issues as much, or the smog. I mean, we actually have really good air, and some people wonder if we're having these air alerts because our air is getting worse and worse and worse, and that's not the case at all. The fact is we just have more monitors out, and we have more opportunities to notice when things change, and more opportunities to notify people when things change so that they can make changes in their activities.
And in planning, your issues are a little bit different in terms of you're dealing with physical structure. What are some of the principles as a community planner that you take a look at to promote health in a particular community?
Okay, some of the things that we look at is the layout of the different land uses. So again, we do talk about whether it's stores, schools, employment centers, or neighborhoods. So it's the layout, but also how well connected are they? How well connected are they by sidewalks, by trails, by opportunities for biking, and also for driving. So we also look at what we call connectivity. And having opportunities for walking, biking, and using transit are really important, and they contribute to reducing particulates that go into the air from the transportation sector if people can walk and bike and use transit for transportation options. But they also give people the opportunity to get physical activity in their daily routines, so that's another piece of health. Some people talk a bit about the social connectedness also. When you have a well-connected community and you have that opportunity to maybe stroll down the street to the coffee shop, you might have incidental conversations, bump into people you know on the street. Those are good for social health too.
Those are a ton of great examples of how important planning is in the development of a community. Now you're from the Rochester-Olmsted area. Give us an idea of some specific things that that community has done or is thinking about doing and maybe could be implemented in other communities.
Rochester has taken some strides to really focus on being a more walkable and bikeable community, and to make it easy and safe for people to get to transit stops and to use transit. So some of the things they've done specifically are to make a commitment to improve conditions for bicycling for transportation. So we have seen some transitions in some of the streets within the community that are including on-street bike lanes and more signage and awareness for cyclists that might be out. There are trails that are connecting neighborhoods to neighborhoods, which create opportunities for people to walk and bike, or maybe they're just out for a recreational run, but it provides that connectedness.
Is there, and let me ask about the safety piece, which is also part of health. Does it make a difference to have a designated bike trail versus having a bike lane in a regular street of traffic?
You know, there are different users who use those different facilities, so it really depends on the users. The data I've seen show that cyclists typically, if they're moving along at a decent pace, will be safer on the street than they would be on a sidewalk. There are more conflicts for them on the sidewalk with driveways and driveway openings, and motorists typically are not looking for something coming relatively fast on a sidewalk, but they'll look out into the street.
Another piece of this, I always think of water as being part of the planning process as well, and the movement of water in a city. What's our water situation like? You've given us an update on the air, but I know a lot of people use water resources, and like you said, you want to be sure that you're drinking safe water. What does that look like for our area?
The answer is it sort of depends on which water body you're talking about. This is another area where we do some, again, what we call kind of ambient monitoring, like what are the general characteristics of the water, what's happening. Part of the Clean Water Act tells us that we are responsible for assessing the waters of the state. So what that means is we go around, we have some monitoring areas that are just constant monitoring, so it just keeps going. It takes samples every, whatever the time period is set up to be. It could be every day, every hour, you know, whatever's happening at that day. And then we have some where we just go out and we take samples for a specific pollutant. We're trying to figure out, you know, what's happening in that water body.
And are there some specific pollutants that are more likely to occur in our region than others that you kind of have on the watch list especially?
Sure. Mercury is pretty much everywhere. In rural communities, such as where we are today and in southeastern Minnesota, nutrients are a very common pollutant, and that could come from an ag field or, you know, something like that, some kind of runoff. And then also kind of other conventional pollutants like derivatives of gasoline and that sort of thing that run off from more urban settings.
What can the average person do to either help improve or at least not make worse some environmental factors, whether it's air or water, or any special challenges that smaller communities, rural areas have in having an impact on making sure the environment, the space that they live in, is healthy for them?
Well, I think there are a few simple things that everyone can do, and wintertime is a great time to throw this reminder out there. Some people really depend on their feet or their mobility aids to help them get around their communities, and removing snow from the sidewalks, and making sure that those intersections are cleared. You know, we always get those piles and piles of snow right at the corners. Clear them, help people get around more safely, and they're getting their activity in as well. But the other things is get involved. When you hear about maybe a new sidewalk or trail going in, think of it in terms of how this benefits your community. Let your elected officials know that you find that a healthy community is the type of place you want to live in, and that these things are contributing to that. And then also, if they can, leave the car at home once in a while, and walk, bike, or take the bus as much as you can. Especially for kids going to school, if they live within a walking distance, try to walk them to school periodically if they're real young, or encourage them to walk or bike to school. And that's good for their health.
There's a lot of things that individuals can do to affect the overall environment. I mean, we talk about like finding your shade of green. Not everyone is going to be able to be the greenest person on the planet, and they're not going to be able to check the list. You know, a tiny hybrid vehicle is not going to work for a family of 10 or 8. I mean, you have to be realistic in what you can do, but everybody can do something. Simple examples, in the summertime, if you're washing your car, wash it on the grass. It saves you from having to water your lawn. It protects the water quality because it has a chance to, again, permeate down through the soil and get a little bit of treatment before it goes off. So many people are washing their cars like on the driveway, and it just goes right down into the storm sewer and disappears, and any chemicals or anything that's in it, I mean, that goes directly into our surface waters. So little things, changing the type of light bulb you use. I mean, there's so many tiny things that people can do to make an impact, but if each person just did a couple little things, the cumulative impact is huge.
It's
just finding your shade of green.
All right, very good advice. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are fortunate that our region is doing well on most measures of health when it comes to water and air quality. As our next guest mentioned, the community planning piece introduced by Mitzi continues to gain steam and is supported by the Blue Zone Project. Sue Berg from Albert Lea, a current Blue Zone Project city, and Angela Dieterman from Mason City, a Blue Zone Project applicant city, join us to provide updates on this comprehensive approach to community health. So we've been talking about environment and how it impacts our health, and Blue Zones is an amazing example of really not only how environment but life habits change your health outcomes. But Sue, give us, Albert Lea's been involved in this Blue Zone project for about 3 years now. Tell us, what exactly is a Blue Zone?
A Blue Zone is a concept of finding areas around the world that people live longer. And Dan Buettner has found 5 places that he's identified. One in Japan, Italy, Greece, Costa Rica, and here in the United States, Loma Linda, California.
Okay, and Dan Buettner is this kind of explorer guy, and he wrote this book and said these are the things that all these folks have in common. Give us an example of a couple of the items that are in common among all those Blue Zone communities.
Well, one thing, they eat a plant-based diet.
Okay.
They are more family-oriented and even community-orientated.
Okay, so a very close social network as well.
Right.
All right. So Albert Lea has been part of this project for about 3 years. What did that mean for the community? What kinds of things did you have to do to actually become a Blue Zone City project?
Well, first they had to make an application, and when that application was accepted, Dan Buettner and his people came to Albert Lea, and we had a big meeting in the high school and talked about what Blue Zones means. And they showed us a few things of what we could do in our community. One of the things that the community did, the city did, was improve our sidewalks for walking.
Okay.
They put in a bike trail along Front Street, which goes from one side of the city to the other side, meets up with the bike trail. And I think that's a big thing because people are out moving now.
Okay, so made some infrastructure changes. Now, Angela, your community, Mason City, is also now taking a look at blue zones and making an application to be considered as a community that would be part of another project. Tell us a little bit about what exactly you're applying for.
Well, the application is for Mason City to become a Blue Zones community, and what we've done is the Governor Terry Branstad, has challenged Iowa to become the healthiest state in the nation. Okay. Currently, we rank 19th, and so although we rank well, we're looking to become #1, and so Blue Zones would help us achieve that.
Okay. Now, according to the Blue Zone website, Albert Lea has seen some progress. They're saying on average, life expectancy per person has gone up by 3.2 years, an average of 3 pounds lost for every person in the community, 20% decrease in absenteeism at work for employers. Angela, are these the kind of goals that you're looking to see in Mason City as well, or are you at a point where you've even set specific goals?
Absolutely, those are the goals we're looking for. We're looking for the resources from Blue Zones to help us make a blueprint to look at what permanent changes we can make for environment and policy change, and then we would look at improving our emotional health, our physical health, our social health. And so what it would do is help our residents transition into healthier behaviors, but it does help our businesses by having those productivity in the labor force increase. It helps our businesses obviously increase their economic vitality if they have better numbers in productivity. And so we look at it as a tool in our toolbox for economic development and encouraging people to move to Mason City and look at business and industry to look at Mason City also.
All right. So I realize it's been 3 years, which is long enough to measure some things, but not long enough to see really long-term results. What's your general sense of how things are going? Are people still excited about this? There was a lot of commotion when Blue Zones first came to town.
They were very excited when they came to town. It has kind of died down, but I can speak personally from my work that we are continuing to try to find places, improvements in our company. For instance, one of the things that we did right off was talk to our vendors in our snack machines.
Okay.
And changed to some healthier ones with nuts and baked chips and things like that. And our luncheons, we've changed our menu so that it includes at least one healthy meal. We did a lot with our walking paths. We've actually put a walking path within our plant.
Okay.
And so during break, a lot of our employees will walk. And we have a walking contest. This is our second year of doing that, so we have incentives when they walk for so many steps.
And what's been the reaction of employees? You have quite a few employees in your facility, and are they excited about this, or like, oh, now I got to walk on my break?
They are up and down.
Okay.
One of the things that we changed too was we used to bring in rolls once a month for all our employees. After the Blue Zones came in, we switched to bringing only half the amount of rolls and adding fruit, apples and oranges and bananas. And at first, yes, there was some grumbling about it, but now I've noticed that they will eat the fruit before the rolls. Sometimes we even have rolls left over in our front break room.
Okay.
So they are trying to be more healthy.
All right. We talked about behavior change in an earlier show, and sometimes it just takes a little while.
Yes, it does. It's not something you just do right overnight.
Okay. The application process is a fairly lengthy one. You've got a lot of reports and things to fill out. When will you know if Mason City has been accepted?
Well, we will find out February 10th, so we're anxiously awaiting that date, and we submitted January 4th. So in the interim, we've been active. We don't want to rest on our laurels. We're moving along. We are working with our advisory board and our leadership team. We are planning for a site visit, which is scheduled for the 10 communities that would become Blue Zone communities out of the 53 that applied. We are looking at February 27th through March 6th that those visits would take place. So we are being positive and are readying ourselves for a site visit.
All right. Well, let's assume a positive outcome, that you're designated a Blue Zone community. What happens next?
What happens next is that they would come and visit your site, and they will look at the 10 communities that they have chosen and decide who is ready. And so our goal is to be one of the top 3 that are ready to hit the ground running and have plans in place, have people that you think are the right people to staff the program in place, and have the community ready to really embrace it, because it takes the community to be active and really want to make changes. And we're working with our existing business. We've had a phenomenal support from them. They asked in the application to have the top 5 businesses sign letters of commitment. We had our top 20 businesses do that, and so we've got great support.
If Mesa City is awarded this designation, what can average citizens do to get involved in this activity?
Well, what they can do is what they are already doing is they can contact me at the City of Mason City. My number is 421-3372, or they could email me and just express their interest. And as volunteer coordinator, we find a place. There's a lot of places. We have a planning committee of over 50 people and a leadership team with 28 people and an advisory board.
All right. Now, Sue, you're part of this workplace wellness committee in the community that includes not only your business but several others in the community. And you guys have been working on some incentive-based programs as well as kind of biometric studies that will follow individuals. How is that going to work?
Well, we actually at Lou Rich have done the biometric testing twice already. And I think it gives the employee an idea of where they're at on their how healthy they are, blood pressure and glucose and that type of thing. And the second testing that we did, I think they have improved over that time. So.
All right. And is there an incentive? Is there some kind of reward at the end, or is it simply knowing that your health has improved?
Our health reimbursement plan through our insurance company, if you pass each one of these tests by a certain amount, then you are given more money into your health reimbursement plan.
Okay, so there's a financial incentive as well?
Yes, there is.
All right. Any obstacles to helping encourage an entire community to be more healthy?
I think the obstacles are always there. I mean, we're human beings and change is difficult and you have to want change. And so to find ways to make people see, if you make small changes transitioning into a healthier behavior, it's easier to embrace it. So to find ways, our leadership team is working to develop ways, and we would look forward to working with the Blue Zones team, obviously, to find those ways that really will help people make the small changes that will help you sustain them over your lifetime instead of starting and falling off the wagon.
And that support is important. How helpful is the Blue Zone kind of leadership, not at the local level, but Dan Buettner and his team, Ben? What's been their involvement in the community since the designation?
They have been back a few times to check on us to see how we're doing. But I think it's really the community that just has to take a hold of what they're doing and really work at it. One of the things that they did last summer was have community picnics. And that kind of brought the community together, your neighborhood picnic. We also did some sample Saturdays, they were called, where they could go canoeing or kayaking.
So people could try out new activities without committing to a 6-week program.
Right.
Okay, great idea.
And the walking moais, where the community or the neighborhood would get together at least once a week and go for a walk. And I think that brought the more social network together.
And I understand that's a key component of the Blue Zone, is having that personal touch. It's not exercising in your house alone, it's making connections.
And when they talk about the social health, and that's part of it, is being out, being more social. And I think in the Midwest, where especially in Iowa, where we see a lot more elderly, having them have more social ability with people makes them healthier, makes them more pleasant. If they're in a nursing home, if you're more pleasant, your care is usually better or well received. And so
one of the things that we did with that is our walking school bus, where the kids would, the last half a mile to school, could walk to school, and either the parents or our senior volunteers would walk with them. So it's not only protecting the kids, but it's also getting the elderly out to walk a little bit
And
more.
a little intergenerational contact doesn't hurt either.
Right.
All right. And it sounds like people are continuing. This isn't something where the team comes in, gives you their blessing as a blue zone, and then you're kind of on your own.
Right. We at work have an actual wellness committee, and we're working on things all the time. Next month we have our second healthy food contest. So employees can bring in a recipe and their food, and then we do samples, and the nutritionist will judge the recipe, and we sell the samples, and the money goes to United Way. So we're helping out another way.
Everybody benefits. Great, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing the progress of Albert Lea and how that's worked out for you. And Angela, good luck with your application.
Thank you very much.
Whether a community in our region is designated a Blue Zone Project City or not, there is much to be learned by the great examples we've seen. Approaching community health as a wide network of infrastructure, nutrition, exercise, social connections, and public policy will allow our region to thrive. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Please join us next time on The Heart of the Matter, where we will continue to explore the issues that matter most to you.